Have you ever encountered someone who seemed utterly convinced of their own expertise, even when reality painted a very different picture? Perhaps it was a colleague who hijacked a meeting with misplaced confidence, or a relative who became an overnight expert after watching a single documentary. Behind these interactions lies a curious paradox. Why do the least knowledgeable often appear the most confident, while those who truly know seem hesitant and uncertain? This puzzle is not new, but two psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger, gave it an amain 1999. Their research unveiled a cognitive bias so powerful and pervasive that it has shaped how we understand human judgment ever since. The Dunning-Kruger effect, at its heart, describes a cruel irony. Those who lack competence are not only prone to mistakes, but are also blind to their own shortcomings, while true experts, aware of complexity, often underestimate themselves. The origins of this insight trace back to a story that feels almost like satire. In 1995, a man named MacArthur Wheeler attempted to rob two banks in Pittsburgh. He walked in broad daylight, with no disguise. Surveillance cameras captured him clearly, and he was promptly arrested. "Shocked," Wheeler protested, "but I wore the juice." He had smeared lemon juice on his face, believing it would render him invisible to cameras. To him, this was airtight logic. To everyone else, it was absurd. But what fascinated David Dunning was not Wheeler's ignorance, it was his confidence. How could a man be so wrong, and yet so certain? This led Dunning and Kruger to investigate systematically. They tested participants on various skills and asked them to estimate their own performance. The results were striking. Those who scored the lowest believed they had performed among the best, while high performers underestimated themselves. As Dunning summarized, the skills you need to produce the right answer are exactly the skills you need to recognize the right answer. Incompetence carries a double burden: the inability to perform and the inability to recognize failure. At its core, the Dunning-Kruger effect is not about arrogance, but about metacognitive blind spots. We don't know what we don't know. When a beginner acquires a sliver of knowledge, confidence often skyrockets. This is what many call Mount Stupid, that peak of misplaced certainty reached before one glimpses the vast landscape of ignorance. With further learning, confidence collapses into the valley of despair when one realizes how much there is still to understand. Only through perseverance do we climb the slope of enlightenment, where competence and confidence gradually align, until eventually we reach the plateau of mature understanding. Ironically, true experts often express uncertainty not because they know less, but because they see more of the unknown. But why does this happen? Several forces are at play. First, the unknown unknowns problem. Without knowledge, we cannot even grasp what we are missing. Second, confirmation bias. Once we believe ourselves skilled, we selectively recall successes and dismiss failures. Third, the above-average effect. Humans instinctively rate themselves higher than they deserve, a comforting illusion that distorts self-perception. We see this everywhere. In workplaces, surveys reveal that the vast majority of managers rank themselves as above average, a statistical impossibility. In medicine, overconfident students may overrate their diagnostic skills, sometimes with life-threatening consequences. In politics, the most passionate voices often belong to those who understand the least, mistaking simple slogans for solutions to complex problems. And in the digital age, platforms reward the loudest, most confident opinions, regardless of accuracy. Culture also shapes this bias. In some societies where confidence and self-promotion are encouraged, overestimation. In contrast, cultures that emphasize humility often lead individuals to underrate their abilities. Neither extreme is perfect. Overconfidence breeds error. Excessive self-criticism can paralyze progress. True wisdom lies in balance. This brings us to an important distinction. Confidence itself is not the enemy. Without confidence, No one would dare attempt anything difficult. The problem arises when confidence is disconnected from reality. Research shows that optimal performance requires calibrated confidence enough to persist, but not so much that we ignore feedback or deny mistakes. Slightly overestimating oneself can even help overcome fear. But when overestimation becomes delusion, the Dunning-Kruger trap closes in. The most profound challenge of this effect is recognizing it in ourselves. Definition blinds us to our own ignorance. The antidotes are humility, feedback, and reflection. Seek honest criticism, especially from those who know more. Engage in deliberate practice with clear feedback loops. Cultivate metacognitive habits regularly. Question what you know and what you might be missing. And perhaps most importantly, learn to be comfortable with uncertainty. Admitting I don't know is not weakness. It is the beginning of wisdom. Our modern world, however, rewards the opposite. Social media amplifies quick takes and bold claims, not thoughtful nuance. Algorithms prize certainty over subtlety. In such an environment, intellectual humility becomes an act of courage. As one scientist remarked, one of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you rewrite, but not enough to know you're wrong. The societal stakes are high when uninformed confidence shapes voting, policy, healthcare, or education. The consequences ripple far beyond the individual. Populist leaders exploit this bias by offering simplistic certainties. Misguided confidence can erode trust and expertise, fuel conspiracy theories, and undermine the very foundations of knowledge-based decision-making. Yet, there is hope. Understanding the Dunning-Kruger effect does not make us immune to it, but it equips us with tools. Self-skepticism, openness to correction, and compassion for human error. When we see others trapped on Mount Stupid, we can respond not with contempt, but with patience, remembering that we too have stood there and may stand there again. Ultimately, the Dunning-Kruger effect teaches us that the path to wisdom is paradoxical. The more we know, the more we see how little we know. Our circle of knowledge expands, but so does the boundary with the unknown. True mastery lies not in unshakable certainty, but in embracing complexity, nuance, and doubt. If we remember this, we can navigate the noisy, overconfident world around us with clearer eyes. We can calibrate our confidence to match our competence. Cultivate humility alongside knowledge, and replace arrogance with inquiry. And in doing so, we take the first step toward overcoming the very trap that ensnares so many, ourselves included.